I bought freedom. The Apache woman and her daughter found a home. The sun had just begun to rise over the quiet plains, casting a soft golden light across the dry grass. A cool wind swept across the land, carrying the faint scent of wildflowers and dust. In the distance, a small figure appeared, a woman walking slowly, with a little girl clinging to her hand. Their faces were tired, their clothes worn and dusty, but their eyes held a spark that refused to be extinguished. They were mother and daughter, Apache by birth, searching for a place where they could live without fear. The woman, whose name was Nayeli, had spent the past months moving from one temporary shelter to another. Every day had been a struggle. She avoided towns and settlements where strangers' eyes lingered too long or where people whispered words of suspicion. The frontier was harsh, and for someone like Nayeli, it was dangerous. Her daughter, little Ayana, no older than 7, walked beside her with a mix of exhaustion and curiosity. Ayana had learned early how to stay quiet, how to watch, how to survive. She knew that one wrong step or one careless word could bring danger to them. They had lost their home long ago. Nayeli remembered the day vividly. Their village had been attacked by men seeking power and land. Families were scattered, homes burned, and for those who survived, life became a series of cautious steps and hidden paths. Nayeli had managed to escape with Ayana, but the memory of loss followed her like a shadow. Every night she prayed that they would find safety, a place where they could live with dignity and without fear. As they walked, Nayeli kept a careful eye on the horizon. She had heard rumors of a man who lived near the edge of the plains, someone who was known to be fair and just, who had helped people in the past. She did not know if he would help her, but hope was a fragile thing, and even a small chance felt like a lifeline. The man's name was Samuel. He was not wealthy, but he had built a life for himself with honesty and hard work. He had a small cabin near a stream, surrounded by trees that provided shade in the summer and shelter in the winter. Samuel had always believed that people should be treated with kindness and respect. The stories of his fairness had spread across the plains, and although he kept mostly to himself, he was not unknown. That morning Samuel was already outside his cabin, tending to the small garden he had planted. He noticed the figures in the distance immediately. It was rare for anyone to travel so far across the open land without a clear purpose. When he saw the little girl holding her mother's hand, the sight touched something deep within him. Samuel knew hardship when he saw it. He had known hunger, fear, and loneliness in his own life. He could see that these two were different. They were not wanderers by choice but by circumstance. Nayeli approached cautiously, stopping a few steps away from Samuel. She did not speak at first, unsure if this man could be trusted. Ayana hid slightly behind her mother, peeking out with wide, curious eyes. Samuel knelt down to make himself smaller, his hands raised slightly to show he meant no harm. "Good morning," he said gently. "Are you lost?" Nayeli shook her head slowly, her voice soft but steady.
"We are looking for work, food."
"A safe place," she said. "I do not ask for much." Samuel studied her carefully. There was honesty in her eyes, a mixture of strength and desperation. He could see that she carried the weight of survival on her shoulders, and he felt a strong urge to help. "You are welcome to rest here for a while," he said. "I have food and water. You can sit by the stream and wash up if you like. No one will bother you here." Relief washed over Nayeli's face. She nodded gratefully and led Ayana toward the stream. The little girl's feet made soft splashes in the shallow water, and for the first time in days she laughed. It was a small, delicate sound, but it carried across the land like a promise of hope. Nayeli smiled too, feeling a glimmer of peace she had not known in a long time.
As Ayana played, Nayeli and Samuel began to talk.
At first, their conversation was cautious, polite. Nayeli did not reveal everything at once. She had learned to protect herself and her daughter. But as they spoke, she sensed that Samuel was different from others. He listened without judgment and asked questions with genuine interest. Slowly she shared the story of their life, of the village they had lost, of the nights spent hiding in the wilderness, of the constant fear of being caught by those who would do them harm. Samuel listened quietly, nodding, his expression serious. He understood the danger they had faced and the courage it had taken to survive. He knew that what Naeli and Ayana had endured could break the strongest of people, yet they had endured. He felt admiration and a deep respect for them both. "You have shown great strength," he said. "I cannot imagine how hard it has been. But you are safe here, for now." Days passed and the bond between them grew. Samuel provided food and shelter, and in return, Naeli helped him with small tasks around the cabin. She learned quickly, showing skill and determination, while Ayana became more confident, exploring the land with careful excitement. Samuel watched them, impressed by their resilience and adaptability. It was not just survival that marked them. It was hope, determination, and a refusal to give in to despair. Despite this growing sense of safety, Naeli knew that their situation was fragile. They could not stay in this place forever without some kind of protection. The world beyond Samuel's cabin was unpredictable and often cruel. She worried constantly about what might happen if they were discovered, if people learned of their presence and saw them as outsiders, as others to be feared or exploited. She needed a plan, a way to secure a future for her daughter, a life where they would not have to look over their shoulders at every moment. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the plains, Naeli spoke to Samuel about her fears. "I am grateful for all you have done," she said, "but I cannot stay here forever. I need a way to protect my daughter. We need a home, a place where no one can take her from me." Samuel considered her words carefully. He understood completely. He had faced his own struggles, and he knew that sometimes kindness alone was not enough. There had to be action, steps that could ensure safety and freedom. "I will help you," he said firmly. "I will find a way to make sure you and your daughter can live without fear. It may not be easy, and it will take time, but I will not abandon you." Naeli's eyes filled with tears. It was a rare moment of vulnerability for her, a release of the constant tension she carried. She had feared that help like this did not exist, that no one could truly understand the challenges they faced. But here was someone who not only understood, but was willing to act. Hope, once fragile, now began to grow stronger. The night was calm, and the stars appeared in the sky one by one. Naeli and Ayana sat by the fire Samuel had built, listening to the crackling of the flames and feeling the warmth against the cool night air. Samuel joined them, sharing stories of his life, of the hardships he had faced and the lessons he had learned. In these moments, the bond of trust and friendship grew deeper. It was not just survival anymore. It was the beginning of something new, a chance for freedom, for safety, for a home where they could belong. By the time the fire had burned low, Naeli felt a renewed sense of determination. She knew that the journey ahead would be difficult. There would be obstacles, challenges, and resistance from those who did not understand. But she also knew that they were not alone. Samuel had promised his support, and that promise, combined with her own courage, was enough to give her hope. She looked at Ayana sleeping peacefully beside her, and for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to imagine a future filled with safety, love, and freedom. The dawn came, bright and clear, signaling a new beginning. Naeli rose early, preparing breakfast with Samuel, talking quietly with Ayana as the little girl ate. They laughed at small mistakes, shared smiles, and felt the simple joy of being together without immediate fear. Samuel watched them with a quiet pride, knowing that this was only the start, but an important start, a step toward the freedom that Naeli and Ayana so deeply deserved. The first part of their journey had come to an end, but the real challenge was just beginning. Together, they would face the unknown, guided by courage, trust, and the unwavering belief that freedom was not just a dream, but a goal worth striving for. In the quiet of the plains, with the sun rising and the world awakening, a small family found hope, safety, and the first taste of a life they had only imagined. The morning air was crisp and bright, carrying the faint scent of pine from the nearby woods. Naeli and Ayana had spent the night sleeping under Samuel's small roof, and for the first time in weeks, they awoke without fear pressing on their chests. Samuel had already left for his morning tasks when they emerged from the cabin. Nayeli watched him quietly from a distance, noticing the care with which he tended his land. His calm confidence made her feel safe, yet she knew that this safety was fragile, built on goodwill rather than law or society. As Ayana ran ahead to pick wildflowers by the stream, Nayeli's mind was busy with worries. She knew they could not stay here forever. Samuel had offered shelter and kindness, but the world outside the woods was unpredictable and harsh. There were laws and customs that could make it impossible for her and her daughter to remain free for long. She had to find a way to secure their future, a way that would protect them no matter what challenges came. Later that morning, Nayeli approached Samuel while he repaired a fence near the edge of his small farm. "Samuel," she said softly, "I am grateful for everything you have done. But we need more than kindness. We need safety that no one can take away. We need a home that is truly ours." Samuel paused, leaning on the wooden post, and studied her carefully. He knew the truth of her words. He had seen the fear in her eyes, the tension in her shoulders, the constant watchfulness that came from living with danger. He understood that offering shelter was not enough. "You are right," he said. "We will find a way. I will not let anything happen to you or Ayana. But it will take time, and it will not be easy. Some people will not understand, and some will oppose it. Are you willing to be patient?" Nayeli nodded. Patience had been a hard teacher in her life, but she had learned its value. She was willing to endure long days and careful planning if it meant freedom for her daughter. Samuel smiled faintly, impressed by her resolve. He knew that the journey ahead would test all of them, but he felt certain that together they could succeed. For the next several days, Samuel began to prepare for the difficult task ahead. He started gathering supplies, making plans to approach local authorities, and quietly talking to neighbors he trusted. He wanted to understand the rules and find a legal path to ensure that Nayeli and Ayana could live freely without fear of being taken away. He faced skepticism and questions from people who did not know his intentions, but he answered calmly, never revealing more than necessary. Meanwhile, Nayeli worked alongside Samuel, helping to care for the cabin and garden. She was careful to maintain her independence, learning quickly and demonstrating her skill. Ayana grew more confident too, running freely in the safe areas near the cabin, laughing and exploring the small world that had become their temporary home. These small moments of normalcy were precious, giving them strength and hope for the future. One afternoon, Samuel suggested that they take a short trip into the nearby town to gather information. Nayeli was hesitant. The town was unfamiliar and full of people who might judge or question them, but she trusted Samuel's judgment and agreed. With Ayana holding her hand tightly, they moved cautiously along the dusty roads, keeping a low profile. Samuel guided them, explaining what they should say and how to avoid drawing attention. In the town, they learned of officials who could help, men who had the power to recognize legal freedom if the right steps were taken. Samuel spoke with them carefully, asking questions without revealing too much about Nayeli and Ayana. Nayeli watched, her heart pounding, as Samuel navigated the tricky conversation. She realized that freedom was not just a matter of safety, it was a matter of law, procedure, and persistence. Every question answered, every rule understood, brought them one step closer to the life they dreamed of. Returning to the cabin, Nayeli felt a mix of hope and exhaustion. The world was larger and more complicated than she had imagined. But Samuel's calm determination inspired her. She realized that they had an ally, who not only cared but also understood how to act in a world that could be unforgiving. Together, they began to plan carefully, mapping out the steps necessary to secure true freedom. Evenings were filled with quiet reflection. Nayeli would sit by the fire, Ayana resting beside her, thinking about the past and the future. She told her daughter stories of their ancestors, of brave women and men who had faced impossible challenges and survived. She spoke of courage, patience, and hope, instilling in Ayana a sense of strength that would help them through the coming days. Samuel sometimes joined them, sharing his own stories of struggle and determination. The little cabin became a place of learning, trust, and quiet preparation for the life ahead. Weeks passed, and Samuel's preparations began to take shape. He spoke to local leaders, gathered documents, and arranged meetings to ensure that Nayeli and Ayana's freedom could be recognized and protected. It was slow work. There were moments of frustration and setbacks, and Nayeli often feared that their efforts might be discovered by those who wished them harm. But each evening, when she returned to the cabin and saw Ayana's bright smile, she found renewed determination. They could not give up. One day, as they worked together in the garden, Nayeli asked Samuel a question that had been on her mind for some time. "Do you really believe we can have a home of our own?" she asked. Her voice was cautious, almost afraid of disappointment. Samuel paused, looking at her with steady eyes. "I do," he said simply. "It will not be easy, and it may take longer than we hope. But I have seen your courage, and I have seen Ayana's spirit. You both deserve a chance to live without fear. We will make it happen." Nayeli felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Samuel's words were more than reassurance. They were a promise of action, a commitment that inspired hope. She realized that freedom was not just a gift. It was something they could work toward together, something that required courage, patience, and trust. As days turned into weeks, the bond between the three grew stronger. Nayeli and Samuel developed a rhythm, each understanding the other's strengths and weaknesses. Ayana thrived under their care, learning skills and habits that would help her adapt to a safe and stable life. The little family began to feel real, a small unit bound by trust, kindness, and shared purpose. However, the outside world was never far from their thoughts. Nayeli knew that some people might object to their presence, might question their right to live freely, or might try to challenge Samuel's efforts. She worried constantly, yet she also recognized the importance of careful planning and quiet action. Freedom, she realized, required more than courage. It required strategy, patience, and perseverance. One evening, as the sun set in brilliant shades of orange and pink, Samuel gathered them together. "Tomorrow we take an important step," he said. "I have arranged to meet someone who can help make your freedom official. It will not be simple, and it will take courage, but it is the next step toward the life you deserve." Nayeli felt a mixture of excitement and fear. This was the moment they had been preparing for, the moment when their hopes might finally become reality. She held Ayana close, feeling the warmth of her daughter's small body and the beating of her heart. This closeness gave her strength. Together, they could face the challenges ahead. That night, Nayeli could hardly sleep. She thought of the long journey they had already taken, the dangers they had faced, and the kindness of Samuel, who had risked so much to help them. She knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but she also knew that they were ready. Their courage had been tested before, and now it would be tested again, but this time with the promise of hope guiding them. The dawn came quietly, and with it a sense of purpose. Nayeli and Ayana prepared for the day, gathering their few belongings and making sure everything was ready. Samuel met them outside the cabin, calm and steady as always. Together, they set out for the meeting that could change their lives. Each step on the dusty road carried them closer to a future that had once seemed impossible, a life of freedom, safety, and the chance to finally belong. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, Nayeli felt a sense of possibility. With Samuel's guidance, her own determination, and the bright spirit of Ayana, she believed that they could face whatever came next. They were no longer simply surviving, they were taking control of their destiny, one careful step at a time. And in that belief they found strength, courage, and the first real taste of freedom that had eluded them for so long. The morning sun rose slowly over the plains, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and gold. Nayeli and Ayana awoke in their small cabin, the warmth of the hearth still lingering from the night before. Today was different. Today, Samuel had promised, they would take the next big step toward freedom, a step that could change their lives forever. Nayeli's heart beat quickly, a mixture of hope, anxiety, and determination. She held Ayana close, feeling the steady rhythm of her daughter's heartbeat, and whispered, "We are ready, my little one. We can do this." Samuel had prepared carefully for weeks. He had spoken to trusted officials, learned the legal requirements, and arranged for the necessary documents. He had also thought about potential resistance, knowing that some people might not approve of helping an Apache woman and her child. The frontier was full of prejudice and fear, and even kind intentions could be met with suspicion. Yet Samuel remained calm and confident, believing that right action could overcome doubt. They set out together, walking through the tall grass toward the nearby town. The journey was quiet but tense. Nayeli kept Ayana close, teaching her to walk softly, to notice every sound, and to stay alert without showing fear. Samuel led the way, explaining what would happen once they arrived, how they would present themselves, and how to answer questions truthfully without giving anyone a reason to object. Every step was a lesson in courage, patience, and awareness. When they reached the town, the streets were already busy with merchants, travelers, and townsfolk going about their morning routines. Nayeli's eyes darted around nervously. She felt exposed in the open streets, aware of the eyes that lingered too long. Ayana clung tightly to her mother's hand, trusting her completely, yet feeling a mix of curiosity and unease. Samuel walked beside them, a steady presence, guiding them forward with quiet authority. Their first stop was the office of a local official, who had the authority to recognize legal freedom. Samuel explained their situation carefully, presenting the necessary documents and sharing only the details that were required. Nayeli watched closely, her stomach tight with anxiety. This was the moment that could secure their future, and she prayed silently that everything would go smoothly. The official studied the papers, asking questions about their background, their circumstances, and their intentions. Samuel answered each question calmly, showing honesty and patience. Nayeli spoke when needed, her voice steady despite the fear inside her. She described their journey, the dangers they had faced, and the simple desire to live in peace. Ayana stayed quiet, holding her mother's hand and observing the adults with wide, trusting eyes. After what felt like hours, the official nodded and said, "Everything appears to be in order. This will take some time, but the process can begin." Nayeli felt a surge of relief. It was not the final step, but it was progress, a tangible movement toward the freedom they had dreamed of. Samuel smiled at her, a quiet reassurance that they were not alone. Together, they had taken the first concrete step toward securing their life. However, not everyone welcomed their presence. As they left the office, they were confronted by a man who questioned Samuel's actions. "Why are you helping these outsiders?" he demanded, his voice harsh. "You don't know what trouble they could bring." Samuel remained calm, his eyes steady. "I know exactly what I am doing," he replied. "They are not trouble. They are people who need help, and I will ensure that everything is done properly and legally." The man scowled, clearly unconvinced, but he backed away, muttering under his breath. Nayeli felt her heart race, but also a new sense of strength. She realized that standing up for herself and her daughter required not only courage, but also faith in the goodness of others. Samuel's calmness gave her confidence, and she began to understand that freedom was not just about being safe. It was about claiming a place in the world with dignity. In the days that followed, Samuel continued his work. He met with lawyers, officials, and trusted neighbors, carefully navigating the complicated rules and regulations. Nayeli assisted when she could, preparing necessary information and making sure that every step was handled carefully. Ayana continued to explore the land around the cabin, learning new skills and growing more confident each day. Life was beginning to feel stable, yet the weight of uncertainty remained. They had taken important steps, but there was still much to do. One afternoon, Samuel gathered Nayeli and Ayana to speak about the next stage. "We are close," he said. "I have arranged a meeting with the people who can officially recognize your freedom. It will take courage, honesty, and patience. But if we succeed, you will finally be able to live without fear." Nayeli nodded, determination shining in her eyes. She knew that fear would never disappear completely, but she also knew that hope and action could outweigh it. She looked at Ayana, who smiled nervously and felt a deep sense of responsibility. Her daughter's life depended on her courage, her patience, and her careful decisions. The meeting day arrived. Nayeli dressed carefully, choosing simple clothes that showed respect without drawing unnecessary attention. Ayana wore a clean dress, her hair neatly tied, and held her mother's hand tightly. Samuel led them to the meeting place, walking steadily, prepared for any questions or objections that might arise. Inside the office, the atmosphere was serious but not hostile. Officials listened to Samuel, Nayeli, and their story with attentive eyes. They asked questions, verified documents, and considered the facts. Samuel answered each inquiry patiently, demonstrating both knowledge of the law and sincere care for Nayeli and Ayana. Nayeli spoke with quiet dignity, recounting their journey and their simple desire to live freely. Ayana stayed close, her small presence a reminder of what was at stake. After what felt like endless minutes, the head official leaned back and said, "We have reviewed the case. The documents are in order, and the circumstances warrant approval. Your freedom will be recognized." Nayeli's heart leaped with joy. She felt tears welling up in her eyes as the weight of months of fear and uncertainty began to lift. Ayana looked up at her mother, smiling with a mixture of relief and wonder. Samuel shook Nayeli's hand gently. "We did it," he said quietly. "This is the beginning of your new life." But the journey was not yet complete. Some people still doubted and questioned, and Samuel knew that securing legal recognition was only one part of the process. He continued to meet with officials, confirm documents, and ensure that Nayeli and Ayana's freedom was protected in every way possible. It was meticulous work requiring patience, attention to detail, and careful planning. Nayeli assisted at every step, learning the importance of persistence and strategy in creating a safe life. Even as they faced bureaucratic challenges, life at the cabin offered moments of peace. Nayeli and Ayana explored the woods, gathered herbs, and learned new skills from Samuel. They shared meals, told stories, and laughed quietly around the hearth. These moments of normalcy were precious, reminders of what they were fighting for: a life filled with safety, love, and belonging. One evening, as the sun set in a warm glow across the plains, Nayeli reflected on their journey so far. They had faced danger, uncertainty, and prejudice. They had walked carefully, avoided risks, and relied on courage, patience, and trust. And now, for the first time, the dream of true freedom seemed within reach. She held Ayana close, feeling the steady warmth of her daughter's body, and whispered, "We are almost there. Soon we will be free, and we can live the life we deserve." Samuel joined them by the fire, his face calm and reassuring. "You have both shown incredible strength," he said. "I am proud of you, and soon the world will see that you have the right to live safely and freely. This is only the next step, but it is an important one. Your life is changing, and we will face the future together." The night settled quietly around the cabin. Stars appeared in the sky, and the cool breeze carried the scent of the land. Nayeli and Ayana slept peacefully, feeling the warmth of safety and the promise of a new beginning. Samuel watched them, his heart full of quiet satisfaction. He knew there would still be challenges ahead, but he also knew that they had taken the most important step, the step toward freedom, dignity, and the chance to live without fear. The next morning they prepared for the final stages of the process. Nayeli packed their few belongings, organized documents, and made sure Ayana was ready. Samuel led them once more into the town, confident and steady, knowing that the next meetings would solidify the freedom that they had worked so hard to achieve. Each step they took was a step closer to a life that had once seemed impossible, a life where mother and daughter could live safely, thrive, and belong. The morning sun shone brightly over the open plains, casting long shadows of the trees near Samuel's cabin. The day had come when Nayeli and Ayana would leave the temporary safety of this small cabin to move into a new home, a home that would finally belong to them. The sense of anticipation in the air was heavy but hopeful, filled with the promise of freedom that they had worked so hard to secure. Nayeli felt a flutter in her chest. She held Ayana's small hand tightly as they prepared to leave. "This is our chance," she whispered softly. "A real home, just for us." Ayana, sensing the importance of the day, was quiet but eager. Her little eyes sparkled with curiosity and excitement, though a hint of nervousness lingered. She had spent months in constant motion, always alert, always careful, and now she was about to step into a life where safety would no longer be a question. The thought filled her with wonder and relief. "Will it be big, Mama?" she asked, her small voice trembling slightly. Nayeli smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's face. "It will be a good home, Ayanna. We will make it our own, and we will be safe here." She looked at Samuel, who had been their guide, protector, and friend throughout this journey. His calm presence had been a rock during uncertain times, and his determination had made all of this possible. The three of them set out toward the small house Samuel had secured. It was modest, built of sturdy wood with a small porch and windows that let in the morning light. A garden plot had already been prepared, giving them space to grow vegetables and herbs. The house was not grand, but it was warm, safe, and theirs. For the first time, Nayeli felt the stirrings of hope that had been buried under months of fear and uncertainty. As they approached the home, Nayeli took a deep breath. The door opened easily, revealing a small, clean interior, with enough space for them to live comfortably. Ayanna ran ahead, exploring each corner with a mixture of caution and delight. She opened cupboards, peered out the windows, and touched the smooth wooden floors. "Mama, it feels real," she said, her voice filled with wonder. Nayeli followed, setting down their few belongings carefully. She looked around the space, imagining how they could make it their own. She saw possibilities where there had once been fear. There was a place for a small table, a corner for Ayanna to play and learn, and windows where sunlight could warm the room in the morning. The house, though simple, represented freedom, safety, and the chance to build a life they could call their own. Samuel watched quietly, a small smile on his face. He had done everything he could to prepare the legal groundwork for their new life, and now, the moment of settling in had arrived. He knew there would still be challenges, but he also understood that a home was not just walls and a roof. It was a place to feel safe, to grow, and to belong. This house would become that place for Nayeli and Ayanna. Over the next few days, they began the work of making the house truly theirs. Nayeli organized the rooms, arranging their few possessions with care. Ayanna helped where she could, learning the small chores that would keep their home comfortable. Samuel assisted when needed, but also gave them space to establish their own routines. It was a delicate balance, allowing Nayeli to feel independent while offering guidance and support. As they settled into daily life, Nayeli began to feel the weight of responsibility easing slightly. The constant fear of being discovered or taken away diminished. She could finally allow herself to breathe, to plan for the future, and to think about the kind of life she wanted to create for Ayanna. She taught her daughter small skills, how to gather herbs, how to tend a garden, and how to maintain their home. Each lesson was a step toward independence, a way for Ayanna to grow confident in a world that had once been so threatening. Evenings were filled with quiet conversations by the fire. Nayeli and Samuel shared stories and plans, discussing how they could ensure the safety and well-being of the mother and daughter. Ayanna listened, her eyes wide with fascination as they spoke of the world beyond the plains, of the possibilities that now lay before them. These moments were filled with warmth, laughter, and the first sense of stability they had known in a long time. Despite the sense of safety, Nayeli knew that challenges remained. The world outside their small home was still unpredictable. There would be people who did not understand their story, who might question their right to live freely, or who might challenge Samuel's efforts. Nayeli remained vigilant, teaching Ayanna to be aware while encouraging her to embrace the joy of their new life. Freedom, she realized, required both courage and wisdom. One morning, Nayeli ventured into the garden to check on the vegetables. The soil was rich and dark, promising a good harvest if tended carefully. Ayanna joined her, helping to water the plants and collect small herbs. As they worked, Nayeli reflected on how far they had come. From days of constant fear and hiding, they had arrived at a place where life could be simple, safe, and filled with hope. She felt a deep gratitude for Samuel, whose kindness and determination had made this possible. Samuel joined them, carrying tools for the garden. "The plants are growing well," he said. "With care, you will have plenty of food to eat, and Ayanna can learn about the land and how to care for it." Nayeli smiled, appreciating the balance between guidance and independence he offered. It was a partnership built on trust, respect, and shared purpose. As the days passed, Nayeli and Ayana began to feel more confident. They explored the surrounding land, learning the paths and resources that would help them thrive. Ayana played in the fields, ran by the stream, and listened to the birds singing in the trees. Nayeli felt a joy she had not known in a long time. A sense of freedom that was more than just physical safety. It was emotional and mental relief, a space to grow and dream without constant fear. Evenings became times of reflection and learning. Nayeli told Ayana stories of their heritage, of their ancestors' bravery, and of the values they wanted to carry forward. She emphasized courage, kindness, and the importance of making wise decisions. Ayana listened intently, absorbing lessons that would guide her in the future. Samuel occasionally joined, adding his own experiences and insights, showing how care, honesty, and patience could create stability in an unpredictable world. One afternoon, as they rested on the porch, Samuel spoke quietly. "You both have done remarkably well," he said. "You have adjusted, learned, and grown. The home is yours, and your freedom is secure. But remember, building a life takes time. There will be challenges, but you have the tools and the strength to face them." Nayeli nodded, understanding the truth in his words. Freedom was not a single event. It was a process, a daily effort to create and maintain safety, comfort, and belonging. Nayeli began to plan for the future. She thought about education for Ayana, skills they could learn together, and ways to strengthen their home. She planted seeds in the garden not only for food but also as symbols of growth and hope. Each small act, from cleaning to cooking to tending plants, became part of a larger effort to build a life of stability and joy. Ayana, sensing the calm and stability around her, grew more confident each day. She laughed more easily, explored more boldly, and engaged with Samuel and her mother with curiosity and trust. Her small victories, learning a new skill, helping in the garden, discovering a hidden path, became celebrations of their new life. Nayeli watched with pride, realizing that this home had given them not only safety but the freedom to grow, learn, and thrive. As the sun set each evening, the family gathered by the fire. They shared meals, exchanged stories, and planned for the days ahead. The sense of community, warmth, and safety filled the cabin. Nayeli often reflected on the journey that had brought them here, the hardships, the fear, the moments of doubt, and she felt a deep appreciation for the people who had helped, especially Samuel, whose commitment had been unwavering. Though life was not perfect, the home represented a turning point. Nayeli no longer lived in constant fear. She could now envision a future where she and Ayana could flourish. Each day brought new lessons, small joys, and the steady realization that they belonged. The hardships of the past had taught them resilience, but the present offered comfort, stability, and the possibility of happiness. One evening, as the stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, Nayeli stood on the porch with Ayana in her arms. She looked out over the land, feeling the quiet peace of a home that was truly theirs. "We are safe now," she whispered, her voice full of gratitude and hope. "We have a place to belong, and we will make it a life worth living." Ayana nestled close, her small hands gripping her mother's arm. "I am happy, Mama," she said softly. "I feel safe." Nayeli smiled, holding her daughter close. "We are free, my little one, and we will build a life filled with love, courage, and hope." Samuel watched them from a short distance, a quiet satisfaction in his eyes. He had helped guide them to this moment, and he knew that their journey was far from over. But he also knew that they had taken the most important steps, securing freedom, finding safety, and creating a home. In this small, humble place, a family had begun to thrive, learning what it meant to belong and to live without fear. The days continued, filled with learning, growth, and quiet victories. Nayeli planted more seeds in the garden, taught Ayana new skills, and shared stories of courage and resilience. Samuel continued to provide guidance and support, respecting their independence while offering wisdom from his own experiences. Slowly, the cabin became more than a house. It became a home filled with warmth, safety, and the promise of a better future. And so, life continued, each day a step toward stability, each small achievement a celebration of freedom and resilience. Nayeli and Ayana had faced danger, fear, and uncertainty, but they had arrived at a place where safety, belonging, and hope were real. Their home was modest, but it was theirs, and in it they began to write the next chapter of their lives. A chapter filled with possibility, growth, and the quiet joy of being truly free. The mornings at their small home had grown calm and bright. The sun rose over the plains, filling the fields and forest edges with golden light. Nayeli stood at the doorway, watching Ayana run across the yard, her laughter ringing like a clear bell. It was a sound Nayeli had not heard in years, a sound that filled her heart with joy and relief. The journey they had taken, from fear and uncertainty to this small cabin filled with warmth and safety, felt almost like a dream. Samuel had left for the town earlier, attending to his work, leaving the mother and daughter to their quiet morning routine. Nayeli felt the peace around her, but she also knew that freedom was more than the absence of danger. It was the ability to live fully, to grow, to plan, and to take pride in what they had achieved. She looked at Ayana, her small hands busy with a garden hoe, and smiled. The little girl had grown stronger, braver, and wiser with each passing day. Life in their home had become a rhythm of learning, work, and simple joys. Nayeli had planted a vegetable garden that flourished, tended by both herself and Ayana. They collected water from the nearby stream, cooked meals over the fire, and mended clothes when needed. Each day was a balance between practical survival and the quiet acts that made a house a home. For the first time, Nayeli felt a sense of accomplishment and control over her life. Ayana ran to her mother with a handful of freshly picked herbs, her small face glowing.
"Mama, look! I picked them all by myself," she said, her voice full of pride.
Nayeli knelt beside her daughter, examining the small collection.
"You did wonderfully, Ayana," she said.
"This will help us cook our meals and keep us healthy. You are learning so much, my little one." Ayana beamed, happy to share the responsibility of their home and proud of the role she played. The days were filled with learning and small successes. Nayeli taught Ayana about the plants around them, how to recognize edible herbs, and how to care for the land. She showed her how to keep the home clean, organize their possessions, and plan for future needs. Every lesson strengthened the bond between mother and daughter, creating a sense of purpose and belonging that had been missing from their lives for so long. Samuel returned in the evenings, bringing news and supplies. He shared his experiences from the town and helped with tasks that required his skill, such as repairing tools or arranging the house for better comfort. He did not take control but guided when necessary, allowing Nayeli and Ayana to maintain ownership of their new life.
Over time, the three of them formed a family, bound not by blood but by trust, respect, and shared struggle.
One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Nayeli sat with Ayana on the porch. She held her daughter close, reflecting on the journey they had taken. "Do you remember how scared we were?" she asked quietly. Ayana nodded, her small eyes wide.
"I was scared, Mama," she admitted, "but I felt brave with you."
Nayeli smiled, brushing her daughter's hair from her face.
"We have been brave together," she said.
"And now we are free. We have a home, and no one can take that from us. This is our life, Ayana, and it is ours to grow and cherish." Freedom, Nayeli realized, was not a single moment, but a process. It had been built step by step, with courage, patience, and the help of a man who believed in justice and kindness. Samuel had given them guidance and protection, but Nayeli had provided determination, wisdom, and strength. Together, they had created a life that was safe, stable, and full of potential. The following weeks were filled with continued growth. Nayeli and Ayana expanded their garden, planted flowers around the house, and began to make small crafts that could be used for trade in the town. Ayana learned to read and write with Samuel's guidance, opening new doors of opportunity for her future. Each success, no matter how small, reinforced their sense of self-reliance and accomplishment. Despite the calm, Nayeli remained mindful of the world beyond their property. She knew that prejudice and misunderstanding could still appear, and she taught Ayana to be cautious without instilling fear. Together, they learned how to interact with neighbors and travelers respectfully, sharing their story when necessary, but always maintaining dignity and self-respect. These lessons became part of their daily life, strengthening their confidence and resilience. One day, Samuel suggested a small celebration. "You have both worked hard," he said. "It is time to mark your freedom in the home you have built." Nayeli agreed, preparing a meal with the produce from their garden. Ayana helped eagerly, proud of her contributions. They gathered around the fire in the evening, enjoying the fruits of their labor and the quiet beauty of the plains under the stars. For the first time, Nayeli felt truly settled, the fear of the past fading into memory. During the celebration, Nayeli spoke to Ayana about the importance of courage and kindness. "We have been helped by someone who believed in us," she said. "And now, it is our turn to help others when we can. Freedom is precious, and we must protect it for ourselves and those around us." Ayana listened carefully, understanding the lessons that would guide her in the years to come. The months passed, and life continued to thrive. Nayeli and Ayana planted more gardens, learned new skills, and explored the land around their home. They shared stories, laughed, and sometimes wept quietly for the hardships they had endured. Each emotion was a reminder of the journey they had taken and the strength they had gained. Samuel remained a steady presence, assisting when needed but allowing the mother and daughter to lead their own lives. In time, neighbors began to notice the small family's presence. Some were curious, others cautious, but over time they came to understand and respect Nayeli and Ayana. Their kindness, hard work, and courage became evident to all who encountered them. They were no longer outsiders living in fear. They were part of a community, contributing and growing with dignity. One evening, as the sky turned pink and the stars appeared, Nayeli sat on the porch, reflecting on the path that had brought them here. The long months of fear and hiding, the careful planning and trust, the courage and patience, it had all led to this place of safety, belonging, and hope. She held Ayana in her lap, feeling the steady warmth of her daughter's body and the steady beat of her heart. "We made it," she whispered. "We are free, and we have a home. This is our life, and it is ours to live fully." Ayana looked up at her mother, eyes shining. "Mama, I am happy," she said simply.
I feel safe. I feel like we belong."
Nayeli smiled, tears forming in her eyes. "Yes, my little one," she said softly. "We belong, and we will always have this home, this life, and each other." Samuel joined them, placing a gentle hand on Nayeli's shoulder. "You have built something special here," he said. "A home, a life, and a future. The world may still be uncertain, but here, you are strong, you are safe, and you are free." As the night settled over the plains, Nayeli felt a deep sense of peace. They had faced fear, danger, and uncertainty, and now they had arrived at a place of freedom and belonging. Ayana lay sleeping in her arms, their small home glowing softly in the firelight. Nayeli realized that the journey had been long and difficult, but every step had been worth it. They had built not only a home, but a life filled with courage, hope, and love. The next morning the world seemed brighter, as if reflecting the change in their lives. Nayeli walked through the garden tending to the plants, while Ayana played nearby. Samuel worked quietly in the distance, ensuring that everything was secure. Life was steady, predictable in the best way possible, and filled with small joys. The hardships of the past had shaped them, but the present allowed them to grow beyond fear and uncertainty. Nayeli knew that life would continue to bring challenges as it always did, but she also knew that they had the strength, skills, and courage to face them. Freedom was not just a moment. They had earned it through patience, determination, and trust. And in their home, with their daughter thriving and their lives secure, they could finally experience what it truly meant to belong. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months. Nayeli and Ayana grew stronger, more confident, and more connected to their surroundings. Their home became a place of safety, learning, and joy. Samuel remained a trusted friend and guide, but the mother and daughter had taken full ownership of their lives. They were free, independent, and capable of facing whatever came next. One evening, as the sun set and the sky turned a soft purple, Nayeli looked out over the plains, holding Ayana's small hand. "We have come a long way," she said. "And this is only the beginning. Our life is ours, and we will fill it with courage, kindness, and hope." Ayana nodded, her small face glowing in the fading light. "I am ready, Mama." "We are free, and we have a home. I will help take care of it." Nayeli smiled, feeling the full weight of their journey and the joy of the life they had built. Together, they had survived fear, uncertainty, and danger. Together, they had found freedom. And together, they would continue to grow, thrive, and belong. In that small, humble home on the plains, a mother and daughter had found more than shelter. They had found hope, courage, and the quiet strength that comes from being truly free. And for Nayeli, Ayana, and Samuel, life had begun anew, filled with promise, safety, and the warmth of belonging.